For joining us. I have on my left side Professor David Abdullahi. He's Senior Advisor to the African Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you as well for joining us. Of course, we have our video call with us, Professor Akwatia Mendia. He's former UN Senior Governance Advisor. Good evening to you, sir, as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I want to start with you, Professor Abdullahi, and just want to find out from you where you stand on that argument, looking at the kind of circumstances Ghana has had surrounding by-elections, whether or not it's time to take a firm decision on it going forward.
I think it's anyone who thinks that we should get rid of by-elections, it's an emotional debate. Yeah, sure. If they are rational, we are a democracy, albeit a mixture of the parliamentary and presidential systems anchored by our democracy. It calls for elections. A by-election is election in between the, what do you call it, the normal election. And as our constitution states, you must have a by-election if, it's prompted by death or Parliament has made it in such a way that the parliamentarian is expelled, or if there is a criminal act that they are convicted, definitely you have a by-election. So it is not whether there should be a by-election, it is what is the cause of the violence during our by-elections. And then we can go into that. And for me, upfront for now, I would say that it is our institutions and our systems that have not worked well. That's why we have all these violence.
And for you, anybody calling for us to scrap by-elections is just making an emotional argument?
Yes, it's not rational. Any rational person would argue based on the fact that if you're a democracy, you have a constitution, your constitution says you should have elections, and by-election is an election. Why would you say that? Unless you want to have, the constitution rewritten, and then you go through the process of, making sure that you don't have by-elections.
Prof, let me get your thoughts on what you make of this argument.
Well, I mean, the argument is a non-starter. First and foremost, that we voted for somebody, for whatever reason, we need to do a by-election, and the constituents have a constitutional right to make new choices. Where the failure comes in is the political parties' inability to let their principles for which they are standing for those elections drill down to their supporters. The onus is on the political parties to ensure that there is no violence. I mean, what percentage of political activists engage in this violence? Probably less than 0.05% of the electorate. That then goes to the security forces, issues about the risk assessments, levels of preparedness, the isolation of people that we know are bad, who can be banned from going to the constituency, tracking small arms flows. Bottom line, if we have 60 by-elections, we hold them.
So you side with Professor David Abdullahi?
100%.
Okay, but when you say that the onus lies on political parties to ensure security, they could argue and say that we are not security agencies. We heard the Electoral Commission say ahead of the December 7 general election that security is not within the jurisdiction of the EC. Political parties could equally make the same arguments.
Are predicated on shared values and shared norms, in which no political party in Ghana states explicitly that we believe in violence as a tool to gaining power. But they've sent indirect signals, and there's more than enough, positive correlation between those who engage in violence and when their party wins, they get the fruits and the benefits of power. So political parties can and must control those within their ambit who engage in the violence.
Let me get a thought of Professor Akwatia Mendia before I give you some data on what we've witnessed so far in Ghana. Prof, you seem to have a different view as regards what both Professor Kwesi Anin and Professor Abdullah are saying.
Yes, and let me put on the record, these two gentlemen in your studio tonight are amongst the admirers I have in this country. They are very good in their knowledge and analysis and commentary, so I have deep respect for them. So I plead their indulgence to radically disagree with what they've said, especially David saying that either you're emotional or irrational. Will you suggest otherwise? So I'm going to be a bit emotional, maybe not irrational tonight on this very matter. Of course, David qualified it, so let me be fair to him. He said that unless you change the constitution, then you are irrational, arguing that way. And I think that's a very good point he made. So my argument, therefore, is really towards changing the constitution to satisfy my good friend David, so that those who argue that way will no longer be irrational. The facts are this. First of all, let's understand that democratic practice is not a straitjacket, because there are some veteran democracies around the world where by-elections are not known, and it's still a democracy. So the fact that it's in the Constitution, which of course I give credit to our constitutional writers, I think they did not take into serious account perhaps the kind of culture and tradition and the kind of human behavior you have in this country, which may be different from elsewhere. And therefore, anybody writing a constitution must put in the context, more or less, of the country's history, culture, and traditions. That's one level of the argument. So I'm making the point that it is not a straitjacket. Maybe I will argue that our constitutional fathers and mothers did not think deep about this particular one. You see, with the presidency, smartly, we say when the president is incapacitated or dies in office, the vice president is there to take over. We did not do that for the parliamentarians. We just said, if you pass or you become incapacitated, we just organize a by-election. Correct. But what we didn't know is the kind of political parties, as Professor Annin argued correctly, that the onus should be on the political parties. But the fact is that for 32, 33 years of this republic, our political parties have behaved almost in the same way the past 30 years. Look, when there's a by-election, it can be just one constituency. And therefore, the parties have all the luxury of time, energy, and materials to concentrate their efforts on that particular constituency. That is one reason why every by-election we have in this country, almost all of them, we have had serious conflict, including gunshots, assaults, brutalization, everything that you can think of. It happens because the parties have the energy. If in fact they have veterans or what you call the macho men, be able to bring them to the side. That's one. Second, if you look at the tension that by-elections bring to our country, you ask yourself, is it worth it? Is it really worth it? Ablekuma, the most recent one. And we are praying that this upcoming in Akwatia will not see the same. And of course, in Tamale, the opposition party has cleverly decided not to compete, to allow them to go. Because if you look at the tension and the amount of money you have to spend on security, right now I hear about, I don't know the exact number, but he may know, maybe 100 or 700 policemen and soldiers have been sent to Akwatia for how many days? You know how much it costs? And in the end, when you elect the person, what difference does it make anyway? So my argument is that, yes, it's a constitutional requirement, but fortunately, we're in the process of reviewing the Constitution, and this should be one of the issues you bring. My humble proposal would be that, look, when a party wins a constituency, we have to acknowledge it is for 4 years, as we have. So in the course of the 4 years, if the elected parliamentarian unfortunately gets incapacitated or passes away, that party that won the constituency should have the sole right to replace the one who passed away. To replace. And how they replace it doesn't have to be elections. It should be up to the party to replace. That, for me, is the best approach to this. And as you know, in the United States, you don't have by-elections. If the Congress person passes or gets incapacitated, that's what they do. And in our country, it's even more important, given the kind of political culture, unfortunately, we have developed over the past 30 years. So that's my argument here.
That's your argument. And I want us to bring you some data, because I did promise you that I'll bring you some data on what we've witnessed so far and indeed what people have been saying. I want to start with Kwabena Japan, who is MPP's presidential aspirant. And he said that it saves public resources, protects lives, and thwarts the escalating cycle of partisan violence. More importantly, it offers us an opportunity to nurture consensus building among political parties. And it says when an MP's seat falls vacant, the incumbent party must be allowed to simply select a successor through its internal democratic mechanisms without triggering a by-election with all its associated risks mentioned above. Now, there's also private legal practitioner Kofi Bento, who says, I hope by-elections are scrapped altogether. And then there is the former Member of Parliament for Anyaso Utum, Dr. Adomako Kisi, who says if a seat belongs to the MPP or NDC, it should remain with the party for the full 4 years. This will remove the need for by-elections and the tension that comes with them. And I would say that we've had issues in terms of violence associated with some by-elections. I'll go through some of them. Akwatia is going for another by-election just next week. But remember that in 2009, there was violence at polling stations leading to members of political parties assaulted, cars and their windscreens vandalized. Again, in that same year of 2009, in Tripoli, some political party supporters sustained life-threatening injuries following gunshots, like we just heard Professor Abafwa Jimendua say. Gunshots fired indiscriminately, allegations of vote buying incumbency. Again, Atiwa in 2010, supporters of political parties sustaining fatal injuries. Talensi by-election in 2015, police impounding ammunition, political party vigilante groups. Ayawase West Wogon, which is like one of the popular by-election issues that we've had, security officers and political party supporters clashing at the polling station and some assaults. We have had Kumewu, we have had Asen North, we had a recent one, Ablekuma North, and also, well, we're now having Akwatia by-election coming up, and Akwatia being known as a flashpoint as well. Prof, having gone through this or reminding us of these issues we've had, do you still stand by your initial arguments that we need to be democratic and sustain by-elections when somebody passes or a member of parliament passes before his term of office ends?
Shouldn't we be ashamed of ourselves that as political parties, we cannot control our followership? So they shoot each other, they smash windscreens, we intimidate, we dive with Olympic capabilities to head people. Let me ask, how many people have been put before a court of competent jurisdiction for any of these crimes? We were told that there will be some people who will be prosecuted last Thursday or Friday relating to the Ablekuma North case. I appeared before the Emil Short Commission relating to the Ayawaso West Wogon that led to Act 999, that is the Vigilantes Act. Nothing has happened. What all these examples that you have given demonstrates is that A, we really don't care about the people that we seek to represent, that we will use violence to win a seat. Now, I want you to tell us, or probably Professor Jimendua will tell us, has any by-election flipped from one party to the other? If it has, then I think the argument that Party X has won and if their representative dies, it should automatically go back to them, is fallacious. When we use violence to intimidate, to murder, okay, to harm people, to destroy property, and we think that is the norm, and that 0.05% of the population who are intimidating us should force us to change what we should be proud of as developing as a political culture, then there is a problem. And my senior brother, Bafo, I think we all know that now the United States is not any country that can teach us about any democracy. Immediately, you brought in the Congress. I said, aha, now you are opening a Pandora's box here.
That's a different story.
You know, but the examples you've given actually strengthens my argument that political parties must train their followership, learn to discipline them. Leaders of political parties themselves, by their utterances, encourage the violence. Violence by political leaders has become a currency. The followership understand that. And I can tell you, our 2018 or 19 book lists the utterances of political leaders encouraging people to be violent. And when their parties won, they all got very juicy positions.
So that goes to the other bit of the security agencies perhaps not also going through with ensuring that people face the full rigors of the law when they instigate violence.
Well, I mean, the law must work, and we must hold the security institutions accountable. And therein lies, I think, my satisfaction with what IGP Yohunu has done now. 600 people already on the ground, some intelligence people there, some counter-terrorist people there. But you see, one of our problems is that this is extraordinary law enforcement because political parties are irresponsible. The bill, Professor Bafo should come to the political parties. This extra law enforcement bill is because political parties have been irresponsible and their supporters are creating the mayhem that is pushing Inspector General Yonu to, send in the extra forces. I think we need to find a new way of calculating the cost of security and then passing on the cost to those who have deliberately caused it. The guns that are flowing in Etiwa, the fear that is being caused there in Akwatia, and the fear is deliberate. People seek to sow fear so they win. And it's not the ordinary taxpayer who should pay. Those who can be arrested and aligned to their political masters must be made to pay that.
And I want to come to you again, Prof, before I come to you, Professor Abdullahi. IDEC has sent us a message, Institute of Democratic Governance. It says, IDEC believes by-elections shouldn't be scrapped as elections are fundamental to democracy, allowing people to choose their leaders. IDEC notes that the MPP's decision not to contest the Tamale Central by-election was due to the tragic circumstances of the MP's death, but emphasized the Akwatia situation is different. Again, IDEC believes that electoral violence should be handled by institutions like the police or NEST, and acknowledge that while costs are inherent in elections, way to reduce them should be explored. And that's why I'm coming to you, Prof, because you still stand by the argument that this is expensive, and looking at the violence, perhaps we should look at totally scrapping it. And the constitution that we heard Professor Abdullahi refer to earlier, when you go to Article 112, Clause 5, it says, whenever a vacancy occurs in Parliament, the clerk to Parliament shall notify the Electoral Commission in writing within 7 days after the vacancy occurred, and a by-election shall be held within 30 days after the vacancy occurred. So, Prof, would you agree that perhaps indeed the problem is not the by-election itself, but how we are handling it?
Absolutely disagree. Absolutely. And the letter from my good friend, Dr. Akwatia from IDEC today, we are on different levels now. Look, 32 years, and Kwasi, you know, when we started this stuff in the country, how many capacity building workshops haven't you seen in this country? How many workshops, seminars, training, education, civic education every year that we haven't seen? Does it change anything? You're talking about political parties being responsible, and that if somebody causes mayhem, it should be surcharged or something. In this country, Kwasi, we live in this country. Will that work? I think what is perhaps confusing some of us is that we think democracy representation is exactly what we have written in our constitution. And I'm arguing that we need to review it, because when the constitution was being written, after 30 years, we know that certain things are not working for us. You cannot push the blame on institutions. Now, okay, then let's have an institutional building. Let's train. Look, institutions are as good as the people who manage them. In the same way, I can also argue that a country may be as good as the people who live in it, especially the leadership. So if we have noticed that for 32 years, by-elections are adding no value except the argument that people should participate. Look, South Africa, the people do not elect their president. You know that? It is the parliament. After they have the election, the party that took majority will then have their president. That's why in their last election, because ANC could not get majority, they decided to go on the coalition building to bring everybody in. Inclusiveness. That's how they got it. So that's why I began my argument by saying that there's no straitjacket about how you practice democracy. If we say that a party who wins a seat, and by the way, I'm happy you mentioned people who have made the same argument. I wasn't in the country for a long while, just came back, so I've not been familiar with the argument. But I'm so happy people are picking it up to make the argument that I'm making. That by-elections do not add any value to a democratic practice. It does not add any value to participation, because after all, after by-election, what becomes different anyway? Zero. But if you look at the question, he was talking about maybe costing security deployment and all. If you look at the number of days we are going to put 700, 600 people under arms with all the equipment that they carry with them and the tension that creates, we are going to be on a tinderbox for how many months or weeks? If you think about the economic cost, you think about the security implication, the cost, is it necessary? No. So if we agree that, look, as somebody said, if you have won the seat, we just say the seat is for you for 4 years, as the Constitution says. Anywhere within the 4 years, if somebody unfortunately has to leave the seat, then the party that won that constituency will have the sole right to replace the person.
Prof, there's somebody on Facebook. There's somebody on Facebook asking, so if the person is an independent candidate, what happens? Wanting to get your thoughts on it.
That's a very good question. That's a good question. If the person is an independent candidate or MP, meaning he didn't come in with any political party, a provision should be made in the revision of the Constitution regarding this one to clearly indicate how that person must be replaced. In some places, you can say, look, the spouse. I mean, look, there are all kinds of ways that you manage practice democracy to make it comfortable for your society. But right now, by-elections it's not making us comfortable. We are always killing each other for one seat. You see, so I think there is a solution to this, and the one who just asked about independent candidate, whoever is tasked to review the Constitution, if this were to be considered, there must be provision for how that independent candidate must be replaced.
There must be provision for that. And one point you made,
Sure.
Prof, is that you don't see by-elections adding any value to us democratically, and considering elections and even development in communities which have had to replace their members of parliament because the sitting MP died. And we do understand that the Chief of Staff, Julius Debra, for instance, was in Akwatia just some days ago to find out about the developmental needs of these constituents, because at the end of the day, the person who will be elected is supposed to be working with the district assemblies to bring development to the area. Well, I was in Akwatia earlier to also gauge the mood of what the people want ahead of the by-election on the 2nd of September. Watch this. The sun has set here in Akwatia in the Denchembo district. And the residents here, over 30,000 of them, have had to return to their various homes, whether or not they had jobs to do today. But that is where the district assembly, the Denchembo district, comes in, because it is one of many institutions within the country's local governance system empowered by the laws of Ghana to champion development in various areas, district and municipal assemblies. The question still remains as to whether or not the people are getting what they deserve as citizens of Ghana. In the middle of the recently carved district of Denchembo in the eastern region is Akwatia, a community that has enriched Ghana since 1919 because of the mining of diamonds. Akwatia, through the then consolidated diamonds, has given the nation over 100 million carats of diamonds. Once the diamond capital of Ghana, today it is a community in decline. Years after the fall of Ghana Consolidated Diamonds, its people say they are left with poverty, bad roads and broken promises. Challenges with the mining company means that the hundreds of people who were employed and making a living through the official mining of diamonds have had to find other means of survival: illegal mining and petty trading. Consequently, the lack of proper social amenities has made things worse. The Kuntihine of Achimwenchi, Bafo Ahenejima, is worried.
We don't even vote on issues. That is what I would say. Per what I've seen, we mostly don't vote on issues, but we look at sometimes the personality. But I would say, all politicians, they will promise heaven, and forgetting that they do not control the budget. A living condition is a bit expensive here, being a mining area.
He wants things to change.
Nobody will want to live here when at the end of early morning we're thinking about what to feed his or family. So I believe that if we are able to create avenues for our people, they all want to live in their communities. And I believe if there are job and opportunities here, no one will want to go and live in containers, ghettos and others, while there are accommodation in their villages.
The people of Akwatia say they are impoverished from bad roads and inadequate health and educational facilities. It appears that they are being ripped off year after year and election after election.
We need development around. Our roads are not good. We don't have any good infrastructure around, so we need them to come and help us.
My problem is, kwena enamuso no toprema e fit toprema kwa so kosi edwunase kwa no enye nti boadu ha se ko toprema no ensuo to a ye brewa ha.
So the road is very bad. Your main concern is the road.
Yeah, the road is bad.
From Boadu to a Plama road, please, no good. If MP come, make it come help and finish.
I met the district chief executive for Denchembo, Umar Ahmed Tutu, who seems to want to make things work.
Basically, the moment you enter the districts, you realize most of our roads are not good. We have adjoining districts. We have Asamekesi, we have Kede. These two districts are giving us competition. So our roads are not good. You look at our health facilities, especially our CHIP centers. We are lagging behind most of these CHIP centers. You go to most of our educational institutions too, the furnitures that we need to help the students have access to education is also lacking. And most especially, sanitation, that is one of the serious aspects that is taking much of my time, which I hope with this government's resetting agenda, I will be able to take good steps to curb these sanitation issues in the Nchembo district.
Another election beckons for the people of Akwatia, and already the police have retrieved weapons ostensibly to perpetrate violence and intimidate voters. The big question is, should by-elections continue to be held? Should by-elections continue to be held? And if you've you joined us from the beginning of the conversation, I'm sure you've heard different arguments as regard to moving forward. But I'm coming to you, Professor Abdullahi, because one point that Professor Bafwa Jemendua made was this whole thing is even adding nothing to us as a country. Having heard the people of Akwatia, how do we make it relevant for us such that the MPs who are elected are working with the relevant institutions to bring the needed developments in the areas, which is why they would queue anyway to go and vote for a representative?
First, let me say I disagree with my brother, and I go back to my main point. By-elections are necessary. If we Ghanaians think by-elections are not necessary, let's have a referendum and change the constitution. Until that happens, we are going to be saddled with it. And also, whoever said democracy was pretty, yeah, it's not pretty. Democracy has its challenges. So I do agree, but let me just add one or two more things. The first things I want to say is the problem is actually with our institutions and our security. In this country, we have toothless bulldogs in most of our security agencies. They bark, but they don't bite. So the security agencies and those who do their research should be able to find out who these troublemakers are and really punish them, which means that, you know, the judiciary must work. When these people are brought to face justice, you just don't slap them in the hand or wash it under the carpet. Prof was on the Justice Emil Short Committee. What happened to the report? What are those people who created problems? What happened to them? That is why people are emboldened, because they don't see any punishment. Then the Electoral Commission. In this country, everything is politicized. The politics get into everything, and we really don't see helping ourselves. And the last thing I'll say before I go to the development part is basically the mindset and attitudes of our people is whack. Have you been at an intersection when the light is not working? Everybody is trying to go. In South Africa, people take their turn even when there's no light. It's practical. It's common sense. But here, who in their right mind would go and jump like whatever to hit somebody? What does that make you? If you have voted, why can't you go home? Why do you have to create problems? So we shouldn't talk too much about, you know, the by-elections. Is our institutions and our people and the mindset and attitude. Now that you're talking about development, most parliamentarians will tell you that they are not development agents.
And they are not.
Well, in a way they are. In America, that Professor Bafo was saying, my senior brother, they go there to bring home the bacon. What does that mean? It means that they are going to make sure that they lobby and bring developmental projects to their area. So it's not just about being lawmakers. And when you talk about lawmakers, what law do they make? Most of them go there and they just show up and go and do their own businesses. I mean, let's be honest. This is our country. We must say the truth. I think that we need to recalibrate and relook at all this. They are development agents. Why do you go for the votes and you don't want to be held responsible for the development? And I think that should be number one. And people should be, Ghanaians are actually becoming more, you know, renowned. Yeah, enlightened about all these things. If you don't bring development, we won't vote for you. We don't care which party you belong to. But I think, even if you look at the diamond mine, it's closed down. They can't get anybody to bring in the requisite capital. So what are these people going to rely on? Now, having said that, one of the things these new politicians after the elections should look at is the whole notion of tourism. For example, I don't know whether you wonder, do you know that in that area, one of the best sweet peppers is made over there? It can be cultivated for export. The trees, I think there's a tree there that is about 300 to 400 years old. It's big.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a ecotourism would flourish there. All these things must be worked into the whole notion of just relying on only mine. I think we should look at it. I tell people that I'm a knowledge worker. You know, I'm a knowledgepreneur. I don't sell anything but my knowledge. I don't have a farm. We are not looking at those areas. So I think that we should begin to let our politicians that we vote for understand that they are also development agents, whether they like it or not.
We should also, Prof, you want to come in briefly?
Yes, I mean, just a split second. I mean, when I was a kid, my dad and mom used to take us to Akwatia to holiday. And we holidayed at a small town called Adonkrono, between Kade and Akwatia. The collapse of the diamond mine, Akwatia was the third richest diamond mine on this continent. And then during the Liberian War, the Chastela War, part of the diamonds were used to fund the war. So there was a UN committee that declared Akwatia diamonds as blood diamonds. And that was when the investors left. Now there's no war. So the processes of getting investors possibly to come and look at it again must come. But politicians don't look at these things. They don't know their history. They are interested in getting the votes and moving on. This echo tree is between the junction of Yekrome and Akimodan, not too far from Akwatia. You do a right turn like a cross and off you go. Let those who want to govern know their local history and geography so they can use it as a basis for negotiating. In all this noise that they are making, all these things are not appearing. So they'll come to parliament, swear the oaths, blah, 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 it's gone. Two final points. Violence only grows when there's no deterrent. All these long list of by-election violence, how many people have been arrested, put before a court of competent jurisdiction to serve as a deterrent? Second, we must be able to name and shame these politicians who wax on one hand about peace, development, stability, and then use language that emboldens the violence that we are seeing. But the by-elections are a legitimate aspect and a necessary aspect of our democracy.
I want to read some of your comments to you. Sifas Way says, by-election should be scrapped. It's a waste of resources. There's Honorable Agnes Momo Latte. Good evening, citizens. Okay, there's Abdul Salam Isa. I'm really impressed with what Professor Jimandia said. There's Aqua Frank, please. Okay, so that's the question I asked earlier about the independent candidate. And also there is, again, Daniel, we vote for individuals, not parties. There is Rejoice who says, she's just saying something else. I will read two more. Samuel Kabina says, I disagree with Prof. Which of the profs? We have three profs in the studio. What kind of democracy is replacing a dead MP without election? So obviously that's Professor Bafwa Jimendia. In Africa, I can assure you that people will start killing themselves to succeed their MP without competition. And there is, again, Daniel says, let's learn to enforce our laws. If someone misbehaves during a by-election, let the law deal with them. And I'll read one last one. And Nana Yao Yok says, what happens to the constituents if there is no representation in parliament? Who would lobby for development for the constituency? And Ali Du says, can't the DCE or MCE replace the demised MP? And okay, so there's some more here. Let me just read one last one before we continue with the conversation. Brave Pascal Tonu says, having by-election is just like a man rented a house for his family and the man dies, then the landlord says the rent is terminated, so the room is vacant for anyone to bid for again. It makes no sense to run another election for all parties because the elected person is no more. You're still here on Agenda on TV3. My name is Beatrice Adu. When we come back, we'll look at the security preparedness by the police administration for the by-election in Akwatia and what my panelists think about it. Don't go away.
At Academic City, we are not just students. We are problem solvers, innovators, and future-ready leaders. We power the future and create groundbreaking technologies ready to tackle real-world challenges head-on. In a world driven by technology, we shape the digital landscape, transforming challenges into opportunities. At the core of strategic thinking and decision-making, we thrive in the dynamic realm of commerce. We evolve into leaders who not only speak, but stand for what's right, forging narratives and stirring the conscience of the world. Embark on a journey with us, where innovation meets education. Academic City, educating future-ready leaders.
And you're still here on Agenda on TV3. My name is Beatrice Adu. Remember that we're also streaming live on 3FM 92.7. And I'm coming to you again, Professor Bafwa Jimandia, because ahead of this by-election, which is exactly next week, the 2nd of September, we've had the police deploying about 600 men to Akwatia. Ahead of that, we heard that they were in a community a bit far from Akwatia to do their training and some sort of gain some further skills ahead of the by-election in Akwatia, bearing in mind what we witnessed in Ablekuma North. From your point of view, what's really, how do you take the level of preparedness by the police ahead of next week?
I think the police always do the best they can under these circumstances. In Ablekuma, we saw them standing idle and others were just throwing punches at each other. And that wasn't the first time. Previous by-election violence, we have had the police around. So hopefully, this time, the police, they are training over there, and therefore they should be able to perform better. But the fact is that as I think my good friends have said, maybe the institutions serving us in this area are not as strong as they ought to be. Probably the human agents involved in this process. And the human agency here refers to all the human beings who will be working on that day, how they comport themselves and all. That is beyond anybody's control. So my hope and prayer is that there will be no violence. And I really sincerely appreciate my good friends who have faith in the existing system, but rather the problem being, people's mindset and all. But I think, by and large, to be important to look at this system very closely, because we cannot afford. Nobody's praying for by-elections at all. But this year, I think this is the second one. It's going to be a third one in Tamale also. Well,
yes, on the 30th.
Exactly. So we are not praying for any of this at all. We want all our parliamentarians and public officials to live and fulfill their mission for the country. But if it happens that we're going to have 10 in a year or 5 in a year, whatever the number may be, then my concern is that we're still going to continue to have the police having extraordinary preparations that they are having now, going to the bush over there to stay for a week ahead or 2 weeks ahead, deploy their, if they have armor carriers, and then we go through, then in the end, we elect somebody and he goes. It will be the same cycle. Nothing is going to change. So I'm hoping this time we don't have the violence.
So, Prof,
having said
that, please land.
Oh, no, please go ahead.
I just wanted to find out from you, listening to you, do I hear you say that you're not too impressed with how the police is going into the by-election? Is that what you're
No, I
indirectly
say
saying?
that over the past by-elections, they've been present when people threw punches, when shots were fired. Weren't the police there? And I'm saying that this time around, my expectation is that they are going to perform better than previously. Certainly not like Ablekuma, where they were just standing idle, watching the fight. You see, so I'm just saying that maybe, like some friends argue, institutions are weak. The police institution is weak, so they need more capacity building and training. So for every by-election, we have capacity building and training for them. If that's the way you want to go, well, that's the choice of the people. But I think we are raising critical issues about something that is cyclical. Every by-election we have had problems, and I've given some of the reasons we have the problems. Then you look at overall cost and benefits. Then you ask yourself, does it make sense to continuously have the nation, at the brink? If it's the issue of representation that you are concerned about, there are many ways of representation, many, many ways. Even though somebody today can question intelligently, if in fact the representation that the democratic system gives to people are truly in their interest. Because we know that after election 4 years in most places, parliamentarians are not even known. We know that everything is so over-centralized in this country. Now you're talking about development in Akwatia. Well, my honorable chief of staff went there talking about finding the needs. So is he trying to tell us, if Akwatia had not come for a by-election, they wouldn't have found out the developmental needs of Akwatia? Is that what he's saying to us? You see, the whole political system is a bit strange in our case.
It's a bit strange in our case, and I want to get the view of Professor Christianin. Are you impressed so far with what the police has done, and indeed your own expectations ahead of next week?
No, I don't think there will be any violence in Akwatia. It will be terrible strategic decision for anyone to say Ablekuma happened and therefore I'm going to Akwatia to cause violence. No, they'll wait 2-3 by-elections down the line when people have become convinced that probably by-elections have lost this touch for violence. The violence that we are seeing is perpetrated by the encouragement of the very elites who seek to govern. When Ayawaso West Wagon happened, and a bunch of gangsters in state security uniforms committed mayhem, statutory leaders of these institutions appeared before the commission and lied through their teeth that they did not know where those men and the vehicles came from. Now, when the elites who seek to govern a country or are governing stand before a committee of inquiry with the powers of a high court or an appeal court and lie, then the violence is going nowhere. Because it's profitable, it is franchised, it creates opportunities, it creates new hierarchies of power and influence. So for me, and the guns we are seeing in Akwatia have not just been driven there. Guns are all over this country. Okay, so as Bafo is saying, people are only saying Akwatia and suddenly finding all kinds of things. These are pre-existing conditions. Okay? Let political parties be responsible. Let those who seek to govern be responsible. And let those who have flouted the laws be arrested and brought before a court of competent jurisdiction to serve as a deterrent. Until we do that, we are just joking.
Until we do that, we're just joking. Professor Abdullah, your assessment of preparation so far and what you expect yourself?
Well, I'm not too optimistic. I think it's not just the work of only the police. Even if the police arrest them and they are not prosecuted, what are you going to do? So we should not only blame the security agencies, we should also blame our judiciary, our courts, And when I say punishment, it's not just slapping somebody on the wrist. You really send that. Look, Prof and I were talking about Singapore. Even when you throw gum, you are not going to go free. An American tried that, and what happened? They faced the punishment. So it's not just having police there. It is making sure that when they catch those people that create the violence, they are punished and punished severely. Then people will sit up. But when you don't do anything, and it's what I call netto, you don't have any action, just talk only. No one is going to do anything.
No one is going to do anything. Let me just read two more of your statements to you, and I'll get the final words in like 30 seconds from each of my panelists. Aram Francis Osi says, if pepper spray is an illegal weapon or dangerous weapon, will the police invite Hao Kumsin for prosecution as well? If Ghana police will allow Hao Kumsin to publicly mishandle a firearm in public at Kaswa, shoot others, spray pepper on others, and will be allowed to walk free, but inviting ordinary citizens for non-usage of weapons, what then is Ghana police communicating to us? And there is Fianu Ernest says, although the Ghana Police Service is now active, I want to encourage them to be more proactive in dealing with election-related violence without conceding party colors or of culprit. And let me get the final word of Professor Bafwa Jemendu, and I'll get as well of the panel here. Prof, in like 30 seconds, your own final thoughts as we wrap up.
Well, I am praying seriously that there is no violence in the Akwatia, and hopefully there will be none, because the strategies of the police must be different this time. But you know, at times you blame the police, as I was doing earlier, forgetting that you know that even policing in this country is a political issue. Policing in this country is highly politicized. So if a party member commits a crime, party in power member, you don't expect any real, response. So this, for me, is disturbing. But anyway, let's hope Akwatia becomes a new example for all of us. Then my argument that we need to scrap the by-election still stands.
Still stands, Prof. In 30
There's
seconds.
no scrapping today or tomorrow. People have a right to do by-elections. But let's, as Ghanaians, show our maturity and agency by simply voting, going home, and shaming those who think that violence is a currency that increasingly is making us feel very insecure. Akwatia must, by definition, be peaceful.
Must be peaceful, Professor Abdullah, in 30 seconds.
By-elections are a necessary evil. The problem is not by-elections. The problems are with our security agencies, our judiciary, the Electoral Commission, and the mindset and attitude of Ghanaians. We need to change that. But I pray that Akwatia is peaceful. We all want peace.
Thank you very much, Professor David Abdullah, Senior Advisor to the African Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption, and also Professor Kwesi Enin, Security Consultant. Of course, we've had as well with us Professor Bafwa Jemendu, former UN Senior Governance Advisor. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you so much for joining us on Agenda Tonight. Join us again next week. Coming up shortly is Ghana Tonight. Don't go away.
The heat in the kitchen has produced our winner. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Tamale Esenje!
Kitchen Wars is back, and this time it's for the legends. Gather your squad of 4 teammates from the same senior high school and get ready to rep your school in the ultimate culinary showdown. Think you've got what it takes to bring the fire? Send in your full names, school name, and year group. Team details now to WhatsApp 0561 913333 to secure your spot on the biggest alumni cooking stage. Kitchen Wars. Your school feel cool. Spotlight is on. Get ready for your best Saturday evening entertainment show.
Welcome to Showbiz 360.
Where we serve serve you interviews, dance and music, educative, and so much fun content.
Who feed the cow when they eat the lizard?
What's the meaning?
No one not china the akwe club.
Every Saturday, we bring you your favorite celebrities, content creators, and people who keep you entertained on your screens daily. Do not miss with your host, Giovanni Caleb.
Best of entertainment right here, live on TV.
This and every Saturday at exactly 8 p.m. is Showbiz 360.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Showbiz 360 show on Saturdays at 8 p.m. on TV3.
Brought to you by